Hi YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. So today for this video I wanted to focus on talking about some of the success I've had recently with losing weight, which has been great, and just kind of an update on my health and how I'm getting to where I've actually finally started to have some success with weight loss. For a very long time I have struggled to get any weight to come off. I had my weight kept just kind of either it kept going up for a long time, and then it just kind of plateaued and it just wouldn't come down. It plateaued right around between 195 and 198 pounds, and it was just kind of stuck there for several years, and it didn't seem to matter what I did. My weight just wasn't coming off. Now, admittedly, part of the problem was that I wasn't exercising enough, but, and I have mentioned this in other videos, but I have a heart condition, number one. It's called POTS, P-O-T-S, and I forget exactly what that stands for, but basically my heart is too small. It is undersized for my age, weight, height, etc. And therefore, because of the size, it has to beat faster in order to maintain a normal blood pressure for me. And so I end up having a higher heart rate, and so it does cause problems with exercise, especially if I try to exercise too much. And for the longest time I thought it was, it was my heart rate, and to be perfectly honest, I actually was kind of right that was part of it. But I kept running into a fatigue problem, and of course, as soon as you say fatigue, the first thing that everyone jumps to is thyroid. And for those of you who have been watching my videos for a long time, you know that I had thyroid surgery a year ago in December, so in December of 2018. They had found a lump on my thyroid and they removed half of it. But, that being said, my thyroid levels have always been normal. Even after my surgery, my thyroid levels have remained ridiculously normal. I mean, you look at the high-low minimums of the normal range, and I'm usually smack dab in the middle of it. Before the surgery, after the surgery, it doesn't matter. My thyroid levels seem to continue to stay normal. And what was interesting is last year, my endocrinologist said, okay, we're gonna keep testing and we'll put you on medication if and when your levels start going either too high, too low, whatever. And he was expecting it to go too high. And he said, look, if you feel fatigue, let me know and we'll run some tests and we'll figure out where you need to be with the medication. And so yes, I was trying to exercise a little bit more, trying to lose some weight again, and once again I hit that wall of fatigue, and that's something that's happened to me for years. Ever since I hit puberty, pretty much. Anytime I tried to exercise, I used to have this happen in gym class. I used to have this happen anytime I tried to exercise enough to lose weight. After a few, sometimes it'll happen in a few days, sometimes I can go for weeks without it happening. A few times I've been able to go for months without it happening, but eventually I hit a wall where I can't even get out of bed. My fatigue is that bad. Raising my hand becomes a chore. And so I had that happening in last year, and last year I was like, oh, finally, at least this time I know it's going to have to be my thyroid because of the surgery and everything, and get my thyroid levels checked, and once again they were ridiculously normal. And my endocrinologist sat down and looked at me and said, you're weird. and so then he and I started having this conversation, and I explained to him how I've always had this fatigue, how I've got the POTS, all that stuff, and he was like, you probably have chronic fatigue syndrome, which is, interestingly enough, it's the opposite side of the coin of fibromyalgia. So fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue both present with a lot of pain as well as fatigue. Now fibromyalgia is more pain forward. People with fibromyalgia have a lot more like physical discomfort, but it accompanies chronic fatigue, and it is definitely more related to neurological and and nerves overfiring and that kind of thing, which is where the whole pain thing comes from. But it definitely has an association with chronic fatigue as well. Whereas on the other side of the coin, chronic fatigue syndrome, you can have physical pain as well, but it is more fatigue forward in terms of the fatigue is what hits you more often. The pain is less kind of in your face. And when I hit that fatigue wall, for me, it is definitely more of just not having any energy, not having enough energy to even sit up to get out of bed at times. I mean, it's a struggle just to get up to go to the bathroom. And I've struggled with this, again, for pretty much most of my adult life. And doctors have always said, oh, just take more vitamins, exercise more, exercise less. You know, I mean, I've gotten so many different things of advice. And the first thing they always do is they check my thyroid levels. My thyroid levels are normal. They're like, well, you're bullshitting me, whatever. I've had doctors tell me that I must be exaggerating my symptoms or whatever. And I've never gotten any relief from that. And so when my endocrinologist sat down and said, this, you know, based off of everything you and I have just talked about, and based off the fact that your thyroid is normal, chronic fatigue fits your symptoms. I'm like, wow, someone who, one, actually is taking me seriously, and two, is actually giving me a diagnosis. Now, this has happened once before, but I actually got a fibromyalgia diagnosis about 25 years ago, back in the mid-90s, and okay, so and now knowing that chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia are they can be interrelated and things, so that doctor she was so close to a correct diagnosis, but went that direction instead of chronic fatigue. And she put me on medication, and that medication screwed up my metabolism, and I started getting, the medication was Flexeril. It's a muscle relaxant, and it did relieve a lot of my symptoms, strangely enough. But within 6 months of me starting that medication, I gained like 50 pounds. And I was walking a good 3 or 4 miles a day and eating salads and healthy stir fries and that kind of thing. And she's the doctor who told me I was bullshitting her and lying to her about the level of exercise and food I was eating. But I was like, no, I don't have a car, and so therefore I have to walk because there's not a bus to get me to that part of town to get to work, so I have to walk 1.5 miles to get to work there, and so that's the 3 miles. And then sometimes for lunch I would take a walk to a local park and bring my lunch with me and eat outside because it was summertime, and so there'd be an extra that would be my 4th mile of walking that I would get in every day. And sometimes I'd walk a little further than that and I'd get 5 miles in, but you know, that would be a little bit rarer. And that particular summer I didn't hit the fatigue until later in the summer, so I was able to go for 2 or 3 months before it hit that year. And she was like, you know, the Flexeril isn't making you gain weight, you're lying to me, you're eating chocolate on the side and not telling anyone, and all this stuff. And so I just kind of, I left her, saw another doctor who was like, yeah, you don't have fibromyalgia because, and here's the key difference in the diagnoses. With fibromyalgia, you have what's called tender points on your body, and it's my understanding that the tender point test is no longer a valid test for fibromyalgia, but at the time, that was how fibromyalgia was diagnosed. You have these 18 points on your body that if you gently touch it like this, it goes out, you know, there's pain. And she found 2 points on my body like that. 2 out of 18. And for a fibromyalgia diagnosis back then, mid-90s, you needed 11 out of 18. So her whole diagnosis for me was wrong, and the fact that she was telling me that I was lying to her about my exercise and diet, it was just kind of a bad situation. So I kind of like, okay, this other doctor weaned me off of the Flexeril that she had put me on, and gave me some supplements and things that actually did help with my energy levels to a degree. It didn't like completely fix everything, but it definitely kind of helped, as well as get rid of the Flexeril out of my system. But I've struggled with my weight ever since I was on the Flexeril. I don't know if the Flexeril itself has had that long of an effect on me, or as I've gotten older, you know, my metabolism has just slowed down anyway, so there's a lot of reasons. But that being said, so I didn't have fibromyalgia, still struggled to deal with my weight, still struggled with doctors, but finally, now that I've got this diagnosis, one of the things I did as soon as I got home is I did a Google search, and it's like, okay, how do you treat this? Because my endocrinologist himself said, you know, I don't have any treatments for this. You know, it's knowledge that you now have that yes, you have a condition, but there are no, you know, real known treatments that I'm aware of. So I went and did a search, and I actually found something on the Mayo Clinic website, which is actually one of my favorite websites because I tend to trust the Mayo Clinic in terms of their integrity and things. And they had an article about natural supplements to help with chronic fatigue, since there are no medical treatments for the condition. And oddly enough, they had a list of like 5 or 6 supplements, and I am already taking most of those for other reasons. And I was like, huh. And there's one on there that I wasn't taking it, and it was called D-Ribose. And D-Ribose is basically, it's a type of sugar. It's part of, because ribonucleic acid is your DNA, and then of course RNA and everything. So ribose is kind of part of the whole, what makes your body work, and the DNA and just all of that stuff. And so they've done some limited trials with D-Ribose with people with chronic fatigue, and have had some limited success. Some people are seeing a positive effect from taking it. They were not, one of the caveats is that they weren't sure if it was a placebo effect that they were seeing or not, and more studies and more trials need to happen. I was like, well, let me try it anyway. And again, you know, could be a placebo effect, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe my brain is like feeling better because it thinks I'm treating something that, you know, I don't know. But it seems to be working for me so far. Usually if I tried to exercise for more than 30 minutes at a time and more than 3 times a week, then I would quickly hit that wall of fatigue. And so I used to have to be really careful with it. And even when I was consistently working out for 30 minutes 3 times a week, eventually, within a few weeks or months, I'd hit that wall of fatigue and I'd have to stop and just stop exercising entirely for a while. Which obviously does not lend itself to losing weight. But I started taking the Ribose before my top surgery. Now, after my top surgery, I had to like curtail my exercise for a while. They told me no real exercise for the first month, and then you can start going, you know, slowly back into it. So, but for about a month beforehand, I was exercising almost pretty much every single day and not feeling fatigued, and that was amazing. And a couple of times when I did miss taking the Ribose, and I'm taking about 15 grams of it a day right now. It's basically 3 teaspoons, and since it's basically it's a type of sugar, I'm putting basically 1 teaspoon of it into a cup of tea, and I'm doing that 3 times a day. And so I've been doing that, and it was working really great before my surgery, so I kept taking it, and there were a couple of times when I stopped taking it, and boom, I was fatigued. But then as soon as I started taking it again, within a couple of days of me taking it, my fatigue was gone. And that was pretty powerful for me. It's like, wow, not only is it allowing me to exercise if I keep taking it, but if I stop taking it and I hit that fatigue, if I just start taking it again, it instead of taking weeks for the fatigue to go away, it goes away in just a few days. And that was really amazing for me. I don't know if this would work for everybody who has chronic fatigue syndrome, but at the very least, I mean, you can buy this over the counter, you can buy this at Amazon and stuff. It's not the cheapest stuff in the world to buy. I think I was using one brand that was, I'm trying to think, 500 grams for like almost $30, $25. And now I found one that I can get it in bulk at 1,000 grams for about $26 instead, so more for cheaper. It's not the cheapest stuff in the world, but it seems to really be helping, and I'm really, really happy about this. And so now what I've been doing since the beginning of the year, I have literally pretty much almost every single day since January 1st, with 2 or 3 day exceptions. One because I caught a bad cold in January, and so there were about at least 2 days there where I wasn't exercising, and then I think since then there was like 1 day where I wasn't able to get a workout in. But since then I have been getting consistent workouts in, and I'm either like taking my dogs out for a walk for a good 35-40 minutes for 2 miles, and just trying to do a nice steady pace and stuff every other day, and every other day I have an elliptical at home, and I like just watching TV, and I'm watching like hour-long dramas and doing the elliptical. And I've never been able to use my elliptical for more than 20 or 30 minutes at a time before I just ran out of breath, and that was without doing any extra resistance or anything. I was just the basic level of it, using it, and after about 20 or 30 minutes I felt like I had to pass out and I had to stop using it. And now I can go for a full hour and I'm still going strong, and it's fine. And I think I've started ramping up the resistance and the I'm trying to think of the word for it, but you know what I mean. Is that you can raise the angle and stuff. There's a word for it, but anyway, it's not helping my memory any, but it's helping my energy levels. And so because I'm now consistently exercising a lot more than I used to, my weight is finally coming off. So like I said, it was for the longest time, it used to hover between 195 and 198. Last year I did drop about 15 pounds after my hysterectomy, just because of all the hormones and stuff and everything, and the weight dropped, but then it plateaued again. So I plateaued in the 180s, and as of yesterday I hit 173. Which is literally the lowest weight I've been in years. I have not been below 180. And so the fact that I'm now at 173 is for me, it's amazing. I feel great. I have a lot more energy now in general, and I feel so much better about everything, and I'm hoping this will help with my cholesterol levels. I'm hoping this will help with my blood sugar levels. I don't have diabetes, but usually my blood sugar is hovering right between 95 and 100, so not quite pre-diabetic, but just on the cusp there. And my grandfather had diabetes, so I've always been kind of worried about that one. So I'm hoping I can drive that down a little bit into a little bit safer zone. And then my cholesterol, I as far as I know, I have a genetic propensity for bad cholesterol, and my grandfather had bad cholesterol and everything. And mine has always hovered between 250 and 300, no matter how much I tried to exercise when I could, and no matter how healthy my diet was. So my cholesterol levels were never diet related. I've had a very healthy diet for a long time. But now that I'm exercising more, hopefully maybe that can help pull my cholesterol levels down. I'm not quite taking statins just yet, but my doctor was like, once you hit 50, if we don't get those levels down, I'm going to have to put you on a statin. So I'm hoping to avoid having to do that. So anyway, that is my story in terms of dealing with chronic fatigue, and just to put a final spin on all this with the POTS and everything is several studies have shown that there might be a link between having chronic fatigue and having POTS. Apparently, having an undersized heart, apparently there seems to be, at the very least, there seems to be a correlation of a lot of people with POTS also have chronic fatigue, and a lot of people who have chronic fatigue also have POTS. So, but there are people with chronic fatigue who don't show symptoms of POTS and vice versa. So more research needs to be done on this, and of course correlation does not imply causation, so they haven't made a complete connection there, but there definitely seems to be some kind of overlap and everything. So I thought that was very interesting, and I've always said that something to do with my heart might be doing, might have something to do with my fatigue and my exercise intolerance and everything. And even though it's not completely for sure yet scientifically, it looks like there might be something there. So maybe I wasn't completely blowing smoke on that one. So anyhow, thanks for listening. If you have chronic fatigue or if you've been diagnosed with it, go to Amazon or something and check out the D-Ribose and try it, because I swear, for me, it really is working. I'll make another update on this later in the year and let you know if my energy levels continue to be elevated, and if I'm continuing to exercise and stuff, and where my weight's at and everything. And if I crash again, I'll make an update and say, hey, by the way, it's been X weeks, X months, whatever, and I've crashed or whatever, which could happen, I don't know. So regardless of what happens with where my fatigue is, where my exercise is, where my weight is, I will make another video at some point later this year and do updates and stuff. I'm not gonna do like a monthly update or anything like that regular, but if I have more details, more information, or more success or lack thereof, I will definitely make another video and update. But until next time, thank you for joining me, and take care. Bye-bye.